Before we jump into the video, just want to let you know that my code Espresso is 30% off over at gfuel.com for nearly the entire month. If you're looking for a good stocking stuffer, check out any of the tubs, starter packs, shakers, and all, and save big time on the longest lasting 30% discount I've had. Check it out if you're interested, link in the description below. So first things first, you may have heard some of the discussion here we have up on tap for today earlier in the week. I was out in Texas with some of my friends, and therefore the content you've seen since Saturday has been pre-recorded and stuff that's been up and ready to go for about a week now, just incrementally published. So a lot of the stuff here that we talked about wasn't necessarily just up-to-date content or things that are newer, but now that I'm back at my desk, I wanted to take some time and sort of recap what I think are some of the biggest things here that happened in the past week, and to keep you guys in the loop for maybe some things you may not have heard about. You may have heard about the updates, those being smaller updates on Tuesday as well as yesterday, but what you may not have heard of is some of that of the upcoming potential content roadmap, some matchmaking issues that were explained, and give a little bit more clarity on that, plus also what may be a good hint for the future and some changes hopefully coming in that time frame, given that a recent survey from Activision actually leaked. So today I want to break down all that kind of stuff and keep you guys in the loop for some of the stuff you may have missed. But that said, let's start out with probably what I think is perhaps the most important, the biggest part here of that is that of just what is a roadmap, something that we've seen in the past for Call of Duty. Black Ops 4 had a couple of these, and most notably with the operations and each season as it started, we saw some stuff before that as well to give some detailed understanding about the upcoming time frame and all things considered whenever we talk about content being rolled out. Now, one thing that Modern Warfare I think really could use is a roadmap. And this is actually something that is stated to be said by Ashton Williams, the senior communications director at Infinity Ward. She said, "This is coming." The unfortunate part is that we don't have any sort of idea as to when this may be coming, but it is something that we know will be coming now officially at this point. So whether that be later on next week, whether that be in a month's time, hopefully not. I think that communication is absolutely the biggest thing here that we need with Modern Warfare and all things that we've talked about beforehand. There's still plenty of bugs, plenty of issues that with just some clarity and discussion from the official channels could help make things a lot easier for all involved. It might not be the answers that everybody wants to see, but at least from a community perspective, there's some understanding behind certain things. But a roadmap would detail a lot of things coming up either in season or maybe even afterwards. We still know that we have a ton of stuff within season 1 coming. The initial content drop wasn't as big as a lot of people expected, and that was something that going into it, having played some of the gameplay early at Infinity Ward Studio, I think that I sort of had a better understanding of what would actually be coming on day one, but 100% from what was showcased on that season 1 poster and the promo imagery, it looked like all that kind of stuff would be coming all in one drop. But that's really across the entire season. So to be able to understand where dates would be, whether game modes come out at a certain date, when new maps like Vacant as well as Shipment will be coming out, when other Spec Ops missions will be coming, and all things considered, that will be absolutely huge. But like we said, a content roadmap is coming. I'm hoping sooner rather than later, and I'm really excited to see what this may bring along with it. Truth be told, I think this just comes down to just simple communication. That's the biggest thing that I am really excited about, because we'll have a more so understanding about what's upcoming instead of just a huge question mark that the future may hold. But this actually came from something that started out as some good communication, and is, I think, a nice step in the right direction, actually thoroughly explaining an issue that players were having, giving an explanation that made sense and was straight up, straightforward, and was said to have a fix coming. This dealing with some of the network issues within Modern Warfare as of recently. Now, network issues aren't anything that are new within any multiplayer game, and of course Modern Warfare. There was that report from Battle Nonsense not too long ago that detailed the servers were still very suboptimal, in the best way to put it. Some of the findings from the tests done by Battle Nonsense and his analysis of the netcode for Modern Warfare come down to a couple of different steps. Gunfight and your standard game modes are 62 Hz servers, which is what you'd want. Ground War is 20 Hz, which is suboptimal, and then private matches is a surreal 12 Hz. That's ungodly low. So to my knowledge, I don't think that any of that stuff was adjusted at all since those findings and that data was collected. So not only does that still persist, but the fact though we have another issue on top of that out of recent updates. I think it was the most recent title update of 1.11, which initiated season 1 for all players on all platforms. But the big one that came down to this was that players on PC can actually see their latency, and the user Lulz Raffle over on Reddit ended up screenshotting his team's latency versus the other team's latency in game, showcasing assuming that there were no issues in terms of just a visual bug, which was something that happened at the very beginning of the game, though I think has been ironed out. That's a big problem to see that differentiation between connections for a team. And where we come back to the discussion here of this is that this was actually tackled head on by Ashton, and again, was what I think this game absolutely needs in terms of clarity and that communication. And for once, it was actually one of the only replies that's been upvoted quite a bit in recent times. But the explanation that Ashton gave was, "Hey OP, thanks for your post. We investigated this and want to share what happened here. We found a bug in our patch system where a small percentage of players were not able to properly obtain the latest patch, meaning this percentage of players were not getting match made with a larger player base who are on the latest patch. This lobby formed as a result of that bug, and since there were so few players playing on the older patch, you all ended up playing together. We're actively rolling out a fix for this on the back end and have a fix for our patching system that will go live in our next title update so we can prevent this from happening in the future. Hope this provides some insight, and apologies for the bug." So it's nice to see that communication, that clarity, and of course the issue tackled head on. It's not something that we see happen a whole lot as of recently. So to see those answers just given straight up front, no BS, definitely nice to see. Now, as for when I'd expect this to happen, I looked through some of the hotfix notes and didn't see anything here for this, but it mentioned the next title update. That could be as of next week, that could be as of the week following. We just don't have any real indication just yet. So if you have something like this and an issue where this may arise, it seems to be a rarity, but still does have that possibility to pop up. Now, the next and final thing I want to talk about is one that I think is probably one of the most interesting things here for this, because we've seen these happen in recent Call of Duty games. Honestly, all of them have had them in some capacity, some having more weight and gravity around them than others, that being a survey sent out by Activision on what would bring players back to Call of Duty 2019. Which is really weird because it's not like it's just calling them back to Call of Duty, but Call of Duty 2019, which makes me really wonder and curious about how many people bought the game and just their data is a flat line where they haven't played it in forever, and that could be one of you guys as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That being, if you did stop playing, that's totally fine. I know that people's opinions differ on the game, and I totally understand that, but I'm wondering if this is more so just a standard survey that we see with each title, or if this actually has some dire reasoning behind it. If it is something that is indicative of a lessening player count dropping off way quicker than we would have imagined. But it looks like that this seems to be hitting on a lot of the points, if not all of the points, that players seem to have an issue with. So it seems like those that are around the project know what should be done or what the community wants to see, and are now leaving it up to the masses that may or may not have gotten this email and survey for themselves. Personally, I didn't get this. I've never gotten one of these, but they do happen every single year over. World War II, I think, actually had some stuff that directly led to that of the major overhaul that we saw with the Division system. Maybe this is the same kind of case where this happens and leads to maybe, say, next month or in February, a major overhaul of some sorts. Though, to be honest, a lot of players would probably argue that at that point, it'd be a little too late. The survey itself ended up listing off things like new in-game events and challenges, new multiplayer modes, new multiplayer maps, difficulty settings for Spec Ops operations, if technical problems were resolved, if Spec Ops technical issues were resolved, i.e. how buggy and honestly pretty suboptimal again that was since launch, if multiplayer challenge progression issues were resolved, if spawn logic issues in multiplayer maps were resolved, if cross-platform balance issues were resolved, if weapon balance issues were resolved, if your friends started playing again, which is really something that kind of just comes down to the whole community aspect, if progression issues were resolved, if new Spec Ops experiences, missions, and maps were added, if match balance issues were resolved, and if multiplayer allowed you to vote on maps. Those are just a couple of things here that we see with it. It wasn't presumably all of the questions asked with it, and the actual survey lasted a little longer, asking even more, but just from the one screenshot that was provided, which, by the way, none of this stuff is really supposed to ever go public. Each time you start one of these surveys, it pretty much says, hey, by submitting this, you kind of agree to an NDA. It's a sort of don't open if you don't want that burden type of thing, but of course, that's going to be something that people post it. It happens every single year, but it seems like whoever is asking these knows what we want to see It's just a matter of hopefully seeing them actually done. The one thing that I didn't see here out of this, and of course may actually still be later on in the scrolling of said survey or on a screenshot that wasn't there, was maybe that of the minimap, but it seems like a lot of the other stuff really kind of hits home for a lot of the targets in terms of what changes people want to see. New multiplayer maps is definitely one. With how many maps there were, it sure was a standard amount of maps that we'd see, but it was split out with so many mode-specific maps that things like 6v6 only had 6 maps exclusive to 6v6, and that's where a large portion of the player base is. Spawn logic still is something that definitely needs some work on. Matchmaking balancing is something that needs some work on it, i.e. skill-based matchmaking, and basically everything that was listed here in this seems to be the right pieces. We just need them put into the puzzle. So hopefully this is an indication as to what's to come. Usually when these go out, it's still in the early planning phase if changes ever are made, so I wouldn't expect these changes coming as of next week or anything, but maybe in January, maybe in February, we do see a major overhaul. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. I'd probably say it's about an 80-20% chance that it doesn't happen based off of this, but I'd love to see it happen if it does. But anyways, that's where we're going to wrap it up. I want to talk to you guys again about some things that may not have actually made their way across your table and some things for you to think about here as we route into the weekend and continue our content now that we're back on schedule and back with everything going as according to plan. That said, that's where we're going to wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you could change one thing in Modern Warfare, what would it be and why? Let me know your thoughts, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Probably live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But on the side, now, thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.